Hey friends, welcome to Season 8 of the Let's Get Real podcast. I'm Justin.
And I'm Trisha.
Every week, we have honest conversations about life, love, and leadership without the pressure to pretend.
Whether you're in a great season or a messy one, this space is for grace, truth, and real connection.
And this season, we're diving into some powerful conversations with each other, with friends, and with leaders who are making a difference by leading from a place of authenticity.
So whether you're listening in the car, out on a walk, maybe just hiding in your pantry for a little peace and quiet, this podcast is for you.
Let's dive into Season 7 and get real.
Today's guest on the podcast is Chris Janssen. She's a best-selling author she has worked with hundreds of creatives, soldiers, entrepreneurs, small business owners, and you are just going to be so blessed by this conversation. She is a board-certified coach with a master's in counseling of psychology, and Chris excels in helping high-achieving perfectionists, there you go, navigate performance pressures and rewrite narratives to overcome self-sabotage. Chris's work has been featured in Newsweek, USA Today, Thrive Global, just to name a few areas. She is a California native. She's living in LA. She's pretty cool. Chris lives with her husband. They've been married since 1995. They're about to celebrate 30 years. It's exciting. They love to ski, golf, and be with their horses, which is intriguing, and adventure outside. Together, they have raised 3 children into adulthood. And if you want to know more about Chris, we'll give you at the end of the show where to find her. Enjoy this conversation with Chris Janssen.
Well, Chris, thanks so much for being with us on the Let's Get Real podcast. So grateful to have you as a guest today.
I am so grateful to be here. Thank you. It's great to meet you in person.
Well, we're really excited to talk about your new book, Grace Yourself. But before we get there, we'd love for the listeners who may be new to you, maybe not know that much about you, just share a little bit about who you are and kind of where you live and a little bit about your family.
Oh, what a nice question. I live in Los Angeles. I'm a native Californian, and my husband and I are about to celebrate 30 years of marriage this October.
Woo-hoo, that's incredible.
Yeah, we live in the same little niche of LA that we met in. So we've lived some other places in California over our marriage, raised the kids in Northern California, but we're back in the same place. They're all in their 20s now. So 2 boys and a girl. They're 2 are August birthdays. So actually today's our youngest's birthday. So 23, 26 and 27 years old. And, and so I was a stay-home mom for the whole time. When the youngest was in junior year in high school, I started going back. I have a master's in counseling psychology, and I worked and stayed home with the kids. But when he was a junior, I went back to school and got a coaching certificate, because when I got my master's, coaching wasn't a thing. It was like, oh, that's a basketball coach. And so I was really excited about coaching, because to me and the coaching I like to do, it's all about what works, not what hasn't worked in the past, meeting people where they're at right now and moving forward. Not that we never talk about the past, and not that doesn't have a place for a reason or season, but I'm really focused on helping clients not camp there, like not making their emotional home in the past. So I went back to school, got a coaching certificate, and I've been doing that since 2016, really, and have just loved it. And then I've written 2 books. I'm working on a third. And those are the first one I wrote for my clients. I wanted all my favorite exercises written down in a book so I could, kind of a reference material, and got the writing bug. I've always had the writing bug my whole life, but got the bug for writing coaching books. And so have just kept going since then.
That's so cool. We just celebrated 30 years of marriage in July. And so
Happy
we're just
anniversary.
It's crazy because we're all still in our, mid 40s. How is that even?
Yeah. But when we tell people we have a 29-year-old son, they're like, whoa.
Yeah.
And so I'm grateful that, we don't feel as old as we actually are. So
yes. Well, yeah. And you're in your mid 40s. We're both 56. So we're, I cannot, you guys look so young. I cannot believe you have
We're in our 50s.
You are? Okay.
Yeah.
My
Okay.
birthday's tomorrow. I turned 52.
But Chris,
so.
you are my favorite person that you
Okay,
think
well,
that
you
we
look
are
so-
still in our 40s. Everybody listen up to what Chris has to say.
Yeah, I thought I heard you say that. Oh my, well, because you do. You look like you're in your 30s.
Bless you.
Just
Gosh,
for the
this
listener,
filter
that's what
is
they look
working
like.
so well for us. So
Yeah.
if you're watching on YouTube, there you go.
The lighting is
Thank you,
phenomenal.
Riverside. Yeah.
The number one question we get, Chris, when we talk about what is the difference between counseling and coaching, and I love how you framed that. I have found more and more counselors who are, kind of like making it like an addition to the deep work we do in counseling, where we're going in the negatives and working like, how do we get to a place where we feel stable to find healing, to start then implementing. And coaching does that. We walk alongside people to go, okay, this is a little bit more accountability, more practicality of what that looks like in our everyday. Where do we want to be 5 years, 10 years down the road? And so I love that you were able to frame that. I want to start, and what I think meant the most to me and kind of like made me, I don't know, take a little like moment with your story is you talk about motherhood and how you found yourself mixing motherhood with drinking. And you even reference how on social media we talk about it as, alcohol being mommy juice or mommy time. And in our story, we were in youth ministry for years and years. So we didn't really, Justin is not a drinker at all, but we didn't really drink, more of the proximity of where we were working and with our kids. In my adulthood, my dad, when I turned 18, shared that he was struggling with alcohol addiction, and it, stayed with him all through my adult life. But I remember a season, probably about 6 years back, where a lot was just being thrown at our family. We were newly adopted parents. We were shifting from like all of our kids being under our rules to like college and, just all of these different seasons. And so somebody gifted me a bottle of wine, which is like normal. And I would maybe drink it on special occasions, but I found myself thinking about it like every day around 4:00. I'm just going to have some me time. I'm just going to sit down with a glass of wine. No big deal. I've never struggled with alcohol before. And then I kind of noticed a pattern that I wasn't thinking about downtime. I was thinking about having a drink around that time. And it like caught me off guard to go, okay, this is a very slippery slope that I need to get rid of the alcohol in the house. And so that's kind of my little story of just how easily we can get into the trappings that you call of addiction. Tell us a little bit about your story and how you found yourself in that predicament.
Almost identical to your story, really. I mean, thank you for sharing that. First of all, I love when people share what their experience is, because that's what helps all of us when we're honest. And really, it is a pattern, wanting to have me time at 4:00. If alcohol is the thing we're using for me time, that's, it's not really us, it's the alcohol that and a lot of people don't understand that. And that's really what my book, I really emphasize. It's alcohol's the problem. Like, we're not a bad person because we crave something at 4:00 every day. It's the reason for that is because it's a highly addictive substance and it created a pattern in our brain. So my story is, I didn't, in the intro, the second book is called Grace Yourself, How to Show Up for the Sober Life You Want. And so I'm not an addiction expert. I'll start by saying that. I'm not a sobriety coach. I'm a life coach, but I'm an expert, as Rory says. I learned this from our mutual friend, Rory Vaden. We're all an expert at serving the person we once were. And I was addicted to alcohol. So I wrote this book to serve people struggling with alcohol addiction. And really it became any addiction, right? Because I address anything that's a stronghold that's tripping us up. There was a chapter in my first book that addressed patterns and addictions. I turned that into a whole book and talked about alcohol. And my story is that I had my first sip of alcohol when I was 14. I was a freshman in high school. And at that time it was, we're all in the culture we grew up in, and that just was what the kids were doing. So that was, to use the word normal, that was normal. But the thing that I didn't realize for years and years that wasn't normal was that just one sip, just the first time that alcohol hitting my tongue and going straight to my brain, I was a really, always in my head, very perfectionistic, just this kid. I was just always overthinking and grinding over everything. And the alcohol, just that one sip, took that all away. It made it all okay. And actually, to be honest, and I think we need to be honest about these things, it was helpful before it wasn't helpful. It did take the edge off. Alcohol does do that. A lot of things can do that for us. And so back then, my family didn't drink. Their parents didn't drink. I'm not from a drinking family. I never knew anyone in my life that identified as an alcoholic. So I had a fun time in college. It wasn't a big problem. It was normal, and we drank too much, but it was what we were doing. And fast forward to having 3 babies at home, that was when it wasn't fun. And I was drinking to relieve way more than just my overthinking brain. It was to relieve stress. It was, had gone from, oh, we're doing this because we're at a dinner, we're at a social gathering. It had gone from that to, like you said, I need it at 4:00 every day. And then it started turning into, well, I need a sip to take the edge off if I feel sick the next morning. And then I knew I was in trouble. I had no idea what to do. It wasn't like it is today where we have mocktails and people being sober for health reasons. And we even have alcohol-free bars, and it's very acceptable. Back then, you're either an alcoholic or you're not. And it's really your fault if you can't drink like a dignified person. So I had a ton of shame and guilt, which was weird because I was really successful in every other area of my life. I never stopped to think about that. I was an athlete, a mom, president of the PTA at school, leading Bible study. I didn't consider all that. I just villainized myself because I couldn't get this one thing under control. So I actually, one night at the end of my rope, I didn't know what to do. I Googled what to do, and I ended up at a 12-step meeting the next day. And I stayed there for years. It saved my whole life because a woman in the group said, it's not your fault. You're alcoholic. It's like an allergy, and you don't have to have another drink again. And I stayed and learned what to do and got to raise my babies in sobriety. And the book came about because fast forward 14 years, it was 2020. We moved. I stopped being as plugged into my sober community as I had been. And I did test the theory that I was alcoholic, and it didn't go well, but it was really, really hard to get my sobriety back a second time. And that's how the book came out, because I learned, by the grace of God, I'm here and I'm sober again. And I was able to write down, I have to write this down. This can't happen to me again. And maybe it could help some other people. And that's where I'm at today. And so here I am talking to you about it.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. It's powerful.
One of the things that we're really passionate about is helping people overcome shame. We wrote our 3rd book came out in March called One Choice Away from Change. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that we've discovered is that shame and guilt really are one of the biggest impediments to transformation, because we cannot snap out of the past to really embrace the future that God has for us. You talk a lot about shame and guilt and really moving past your past. And really your mission as a coach is helping people move from the past, living in the present, to embrace their future. How did you overcome that, especially as a perfectionist, especially as somebody who knows what it means to fail? How did you overcome that shame to really embrace, who God created you to be in the present and the future?
For me, it wasn't, I mean, that did change my life when the woman said it's not your fault at that meeting, but it wasn't overnight. I'm really as a coach, big believer in where we want to go. We do have to practice that. We have to condition it, our brain, like a muscle at the gym. And so for me, it was really sitting with this framework around beliefs, where my belief is really an actual fact mixed with what I think about that fact. My story or narrative I attach to that fact becomes a belief. And like I learned at that first meeting, I thought I was a monster because I couldn't stop drinking on my own. Mm-hmm. And then the fact stayed the same. I was still addicted to alcohol. My belief changed because the story I attached to that fact, that monster narrative, left, and I believed, oh, I'm deserving of a sober community and sobriety and recovery because I'm addicted to alcohol. And then conditioning that belief. And that is when the shame and guilt went away. Because I think shame and guilt can hang around almost, because I talk about it in the book. I say all this is in the book. And I say, for me, it was like a warm coat, almost like you get used to it and that's what you know. And I'd had it for so many years, shame and guilt. And you don't want to take the coat off. It had become comfortable and kind of an identity. And so you really have to mix all that up and change it and then condition the new belief.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah.
You wrote this book not just for people struggling with alcohol, but you say anybody struggling with a thing they feel like they can't overcome. Walk us through the process of helping people determine what kind of an addictive behavior or an addictive pattern might be in their life.
I'm going to pause here to say my computer says trying to reconnect. Make sure you have a stable connection. Is that normal?
Okay. You're a little pixelated, but you're still there.
Okay. So when I walk people through whatever the thing is, we want to know what it is. What is it that we want? I say in the beginning of the book, what do you want to be sober from? It doesn't have to be alcohol. I got to do a podcast on typology with Ian Morgan Crone, and he is publicly in recovery. Also, he wrote a book called The Fix. And so I like how he says, what breaks your heart? And so that's one way to put it. What's breaking your heart? And so for me, it was alcohol. For some people, it's food. Maybe it's overthinking. Maybe it's controlling thoughts. Maybe it's codependence. It can be many things. Maybe it's biting your nails, right? Whatever's a hindrance to living the life you want. And so to me, as a coach, I think it's really important to get to the bottom of what is it that the client or the reader wants. And so we go through in the book and in my sessions, I go through first, let's define what we want. And then what's even more important is, why do you want that? And we really dive deep in why we want what we want. Like for an example of this is when I first got sober, I was in a ton of fear for my kids. I had babies. I can't be drinking like this. So there was a lot of doing it for my family and out of fear, which are great reasons also. Yes, that's a great reason. But I didn't go, in my opinion, the reason I went back out 14 years later is that I hadn't really, I stopped looking at why. So it was actually the year I became an empty nester that I had another drink again, because my why, I was holding everything together. Then once everything I'd been holding together was able to hold itself together, and I'd launched these great kids and they're out in the world thriving, I had never craved a drink in all those years. All of a sudden I was craving a drink, and my, thinking was, well, isn't that, if God didn't want me to drink, he wouldn't let me have this craving, right? That's kind of the backwards thinking we get when we're confused and tripped up about things that have to do with addiction. It's very tricky thinking. And that's why a community of other people who understand that type of tricky thinking is always really helpful. And sharing stories is really helpful. Or talking to a coach is really helpful. Someone to bounce that off of who understands addiction and can say, oh, that's, just your mind. Let's come up with, why do you want to stay sober now? And so that to answer the question, that can be applied to anything, to any stronghold, not just alcohol.
We call that going first to help others go second. There's just something about, I remember my counselor, we were probably 6 months into counseling, and she had been walking me through kind of a crisis that our family had been in. And it was like 6 months in that she shared her story. And it was just like, there was something about, like, obviously she was the expert in the room, but it was like her authority changed in my heart and mind, because it was like, oh, she gets me. It's probably why her, counseling sessions have been so powerful, because she knows how, beyond her training, to ask those very specific, it's like someone who's experienced chemotherapy. Like, we can have grace and we can have empathy for, or sympathy for that person, but like the empathy of like experiencing it is just completely different. So, and what caught me, Chris, in that conversation is that community seems counterintuitive when you are at rock bottom. You don't want community. You don't want to be found out. But you said something very powerful, the power of community. What happens, there's a person that's listening, and whatever their addiction is, whether it's people pleasing or if it's a substance, they've burned some bridges with people. And so not only have you burned bridges, now you've identified something needs to change. What would you encourage the listener that's like, okay, I know, but the shame is overwhelming. Like, I have burned bridges. So like, if telling the truth is my first step, and I'm recognizing it's kind of like in, 12 step, you have to admit, why are you there? And it's not a place of shame, and it's not even a label. It's to define reality. And the reality is, I'm an alcoholic. Okay, that's our reality. But what's next? And so for the person that's like, I want to rebuild my life, what would be like 1 or 2 steps that you would encourage them to do to begin that repair in those different broken areas of their life?
Great question. And I do think the bravest first step is getting in community. And the reason I think that is what you said, denial. We need to get out of denial. We need to tell at least one person. That's going to get it out of the dark, take the shame off. That's one thing. But one thing that to me is very crucial to recover from addiction is to not make your problem significant, or to think you're the only one in the world that has this problem. When we do that, it becomes very self-centered, and I think unhealable, where we can't.
Chris, unfortunately, you have frozen on us, and I want to really hear what you have to say in response to that question.
Okay. Am I still frozen? Let me open. I'm good on my end. Let me open my door real quick. Okay. See if am I still frozen? Am I still frozen? Oh, hang on.
We're back.
Great. I think that one of the most important things I love how, you said community. Yeah, it can't seem the opposite when addiction, isolation is a big thing. People tend to want to isolate. And so getting it out of the dark, telling at least one person is super important. And also, I think even more than that, though, is understanding that to not tell at least one person to not be in community it's selfish in a bit, because we're making our problems significant, and we're saying, at least subconsciously, I'm the only one in the world that has this exact problem, which isn't true. There's millions of people that in the world that probably have your same problem, and you won't know that until you get in community or tell at least one person. And to hold that, to continue to isolate is really just self-serving. It's like a way to keep the problem alive, to keep the addiction alive. So I really think we need to not make our problem significant, not think we're the only one with that problem, and start sharing stories.
That's good. You talk about in your book, there's this idea of the Bible verses that kind of help carry you, help kind of reframe some of, the things that you were going through. What words or Bible verses do you use to get out of those destructive beliefs and really help other people as well as yourself get unstuck?
It's funny. Right before I got on the phone with you, a new one came up. I'm going to share the new one. I'm not a new Bible verse, of course, but a new one that I think is so important. Acts 20:35. And I have been an example of how you can help those in need by working hard. You should remember the words of the Lord Jesus. It is more blessed to give than to receive. Acts 20:35. And I've read that before, but this morning I was reading it and it had a whole new, okay, because when you write a book and when you coach, you both know this full well. We are giving, right? And it can get frustrating. Like, why aren't people writing more Amazon reviews? I'm stuck on that right now. Why? What? It takes 30 seconds. It takes 30 seconds to write a review. I write a review for everybody. I'll get off and I'll write your review for this podcast, for your books. Why? And that's not, God doesn't want me to be stuck on that, because then I'm missing the gold. In fact, to be quite honest, I was stuck on that 2 days ago. I was thinking this thought after writing a review for someone else whose book I just read, who didn't write a review for my book. And I'm just being honest. And I was kind of stuck on that.
You're tracking Trisha and I's conversations about why do we not have more Amazon reviews?
Yeah. And I got a text at that moment from somebody who I'd been on a radio show, and through that, there was somebody reaching out for help, and it's in private. It's not a public review. Nobody but me, that person, and God knows about it. And, that was just, the timing of it was God going, yeah, that, for me at least, this is what it's about. And so when I read that this morning, it is more blessed to give than to receive. I'm more blessed when I give than when I receive. And so that's, but I need daily reminders of these things.
Well, I'm going to say this, and some listeners are going to be rolling their eyes at me. So just follow my thought. But I was watching a interview of Taylor Swift, which is not normal. I don't know. It popped up somewhere in like my Google feed. I think it was just kind of and so I clicked on it, and it was this little snippet of the interviewer going like crazy bananas and all the things that she has achieved. Like she has outpaced everybody in her industry for sales and in the awards that she's won, I think like 4 in a row. She's the only one who's done it. And then she said something that just like, to your point, Chris, she's like, oh, I don't check my inbox at all. Mm-hmm. I don't even check that dumpster fire. And I thought, oh my gosh, listen to all of these accolades, all these things that she achieved. And she's like, I don't even go to the Amazon. Mm-hmm. And what caught me in that was, I wonder if some of her success has been because she just does what she enjoys doing, regardless if somebody's cheering her on or not. Obviously, there are hundreds of thousands of million people cheering her on, but that it just caught me to your point. Like, it doesn't stop. That tension of self-belief does not stop when our kids are out of the house or when we've hit the Billboard charts. And so I think we can take that as depressive news, but I actually feel like that's empowering news. It empowers us to go, okay, if that is true for all people of all time, then to your point, Chris, and why I want people to buy your book is we don't have to stay there. We don't have to navigate in addiction, and we don't have to navigate in self-doubt. We just did a podcast with a gal yesterday, and she just said, how our self-belief and the thoughts that we ruminate they can change our life for good or for bad. And so it's just this theme that, for the person listening, that it's not about arriving at launching great kids. It's not about becoming an author or a podcaster. It's not about the thing that we do. It's about who are we becoming to do that thing.
That's right. Yes. Yes. I love that. I'm here going,
Hey, we'll get you out of here on this. What do you wish for the person that's listening, and maybe they're in their car, they're on the treadmill, maybe there's some tears.
We always put them on the treadmill. So I guess we have a very fit community, because we're like, if you're on the treadmill or in the car, so we got to think of some other things, riding a horse.
On a tractor.
Okay, sorry.
But maybe there was a tear running down their cheek because they were emotional till Trish interrupted me. But
different kind of tear now.
Yeah, maybe there's a secret struggle that they have.
Yeah.
And they don't feel like they have that friend that could give them advice.
Right.
What do you wish someone would have told you when you were struggling in secret?
Yes, I want this person to know it's not your fault. You are worthy if you're sick. You're worthy if you're healthy. You're worthy if you're addicted. You're worthy if you're not. Getting sober or getting your stronghold taken care of is not going to change your worth. It's going to make you happier, but you're worthy right now. You don't need to get clean to take a bath. You're ready and whole. I don't believe people are broken. I don't think people need fixing. You're whole and ready to go right where you're at right now, and it's not your fault. Tell at least one person, or buy my book, or buy somebody else's book, or listen to some sober podcasts, or podcasts that have to do with what the thing is causing the tear for you. There's resources out there.
Chris, thank you for being you. Thank you for your bravery to share stories that sometimes feel like they're easy to share, but there is a sacrificial love that just flows out of our stories when we're willing to share that. So thank you so much for loving our community so well, and so many blessings to you in your future books. And we hope to partner with you in the future as those happen. So thank you for being on the podcast today.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so glad we're connected. Thank you for what you do.
Tell everybody where they can find your book and where they can find your resources.
Yes. So chrisjanssencoaching.com is my website. I keep that updated with where to follow me. And then my book is available where books are sold. Grace Yourself, How to Show Up for the Sober Life You Want. My Instagram is Chris, CHRIS, 3, Janssen, JANSSEN.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Have a great week.
Well, guys, we hope that you enjoyed that conversation with Chris Janssen. If you are struggling in any way, we want you to know that this is a safe place, right? That's why we've created this podcast, so that we can be real and honest, because we believe that transparency is the pathway to transformation. And so we appreciate Chris and just her authenticity, and hope that it inspires you just to say, hey, I need some help in this area. And we are going to put some resources in the show notes to provide that next step for you. Have you guys checked out our new website yet? JustinandTrisha.com. We've kind of evolved from refineus.org to this new site where we want to be way more practical and give you just simple next steps that you can take in your journey with Christ, in your relationships. We want to help you take that next step to have healthy and life-giving relationships. And so check us out at justinandtrisha.com. Also, don't forget, as Chris said in the podcast, leave a review of this podcast. It's very helpful for us. It helps bring awareness to the podcast and really just establish credibility for what we're trying to do in helping people be real and honest so they can experience life transformation. Well, until next time, we'll see you soon and talk to you then.
Thanks so much for joining us for another honest conversation. We hope that something in today's episode encouraged you, maybe even challenged you.
Our heart is to help you live with more connection, more purpose, and really more authenticity in every aspect of your life.
If this episode meant something to you, would you do us a favor? Would you leave a review wherever you listen to the podcast? It helps more people find these conversations.
Or better yet, share it with a friend. Shoot somebody a text message today. Let them know what you're listening to, because you never know how God might use that to encourage somebody else.
We'll see you next time right here on the Let's Get Real podcast.